All right. Our top 10 list. What would we have voted for? What are we
Oh, so
what are
what are
we
we?
talking
We're just
about?
gonna go one at a time, or barf out our list at once? How are we doing this?
Let's do one at a time.
Okay.
You get like a sentence or two max to say why.
Give me a few seconds to rank them in order of as I go on. My picks are gonna be more left field.
Oh, okay. So they're not necessarily ranked in order of quality. They're just ranked in terms of
No, I think
how
all ten
expect.
of I think all 10 of these movies. I'm just saying I'm gonna start with the more obvious picks, and as I
Right. That,
go
yeah.
on,
That's what I
yeah,
was trying to get at.
all equally deserve.
Interesting. Okay. You know what? I will do a similar thing.
Because a few of these picks I have already on the list, so it's boring. But I also am not just gonna omit them just because they're already on the list.
Okay. Let's start at number one. I have Vertigo on my list. I don't think I need to say anything about that.
Yeah, Vertigo. I've still only seen it the once, but I don't think there's a single movie I've seen that has grown more in approximation to me or just in my mind. I'm sure this next time I see Vertigo, it'll just shoot straight to my top 30. Vertigo deserves it. It's already on there. It's good. It's great. It was number. It had its time as number one.
It did.
It had a good run.
Here's
Number
hoping
two
for
ain't so bad.
2032. 2032, Vertigo returns.
Not a bad run. Mine would be Do the Right Thing. It's been
Which
one of my.
just appeared on the list.
Was it not on there before?
No.
Oh my god. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, Do the Right Thing. I mean, legacy speaks for itself. It's been one of my personal favorites ever since I've seen it. I don't think it's dropped out of my top 10. Do the Right Thing. Spike Lee. He's great.
All right. 8.5. Obviously, I've talked about this a lot. One of my favorite movies. It is just aesthetically one of the most interestingly made films of all time. One of the most creatively constructed in terms of moving the camera and the actors and everything. And it's about movie making. And
Yeah,
I don't know what else you could say.
I'm not as big of a fan of it, but I do think its impact and greatness speak for itself. I think it has some of the craziest shots in any movie ever. Obviously, the classic feet above the beach in the fucking sky is great. It's got some, I don't know. Maybe I'd like it more when I watch it again. Fellini definitely deserves to be on here. 8.5's great. My next one, another personal favorite, my second favorite movie of all time, Chungking Express, already on the list.
Also just appeared on the list. It was on the 2002 list, by the way. I don't know if you ever knew that.
Really?
Yeah. It was also like right at the tail
Weird.
end of that list, but it dropped out for 2012 and now it's back.
It's back up higher. That's another one too. I feel like there are certain movies that older movies that have caught on with a newer generation.
Mhm.
Chungking Express. I know
Definitely.
that's a huge influence on Barry Jenkins is a big Chungking Express fan, and you can see it in his work. And I think that
it's definitely a movie that the younger generation would call aesthetic.
it is 100% aesthetic. Yes. Still one of my favorites. I have like a spiritual connection to that movie. It's already on there. Whatever. I already said it. It's you.
Yeah, this is true. My next pick, we're going with the obvious ones here. In the Mood for Love. It's still one of my favorite movies. Great movie to watch on a rainy day, a cold rainy day. Just kind of get you in the feeling for it. It is a movie that's oozing with atmosphere and with narrative. It's such an interesting story behind the movie. That's another thing I don't think we talked about is that like movies that have really interesting productions behind them.
I'm not aware. You'll have to tell me about this story.
Well, you're kind of aware that they wrote the script as they went along.
Oh, okay.
They wrote it together on set. And just, it's, in that sense, like it's one of the few movies I think on the BFI list, or maybe the only one that is constructed just as it goes along. Obviously, the documentary notwithstanding.
Which is crazy because the story is also like it's a very well written story.
Yes.
Like it feels literary in terms of its structure, and it's just amazing to me that it just went on little bits at a time. But Wong Kar-wai in general, I feel like him and like David Lynch are just one of those filmmakers that it's all from the brain. There is no filter. It's just straight creative expression, and that's what I love about him. Chungking Express has this very youthful energy. It feels like a fucking music video, but In the Mood for Love has that same like sense of expression and aesthetic, but it feels a lot more mature, slowed down, a little bit more introspective. I think it's two sides of the same coin, and I'm glad that they're both on here.
Mhm.
Objectively, I would say In the Mood for Love is probably better, but Chungking is just too special to not. But
Well, I'll
I'm
accept
glad
that.
I'm glad Wong Kar-wai is up there. But I swear to God, if I see Days of Being Wild, I'm bombing the BFI building next time. Don't even fuck with me. 2046, yeah, though that's great.
All right,
Uh,
your next pick.
this is for a man, John, A Woman Under the Influence.
Great
I
movie.
went back and forth between any of his movies because since we've spoken about it 3 or 4 years ago, I've become both a huge fan of Killing a Chinese Bookie and Husbands and Opening Night. But I thought just not wanting to start a fight, I'm going to go with A Woman Under the Influence. It's his best, maybe, I don't know, but it's his most appreciated.
The only
Also,
the only way you'd start a fight is if you decide to put Opening Night on there above the rest of those. I'm fine with the rest of them. I've grown on Husbands too.
yeah, Husbands is I don't know if it's it's Cassavetes at full force. It's Jenna Rollins' best performance. It's got Peter Falk.
It's got Columbo in
It's
it.
got Columbo in it with a funny hat. It's perfect. It's perfect.
That it is. That it is. Speaking of perfect films that Chandler has not. Oh no, maybe you did see it. I think you saw it. Mirror.
I have seen it. Yeah,
Okay. That was also one you weren't like 100% on.
I love it. Or I like it. I don't love it. It's weird because Andrei Rublev, I'm going to give a pass because I was sick. Stalker is still one of the best movies I've ever seen. I think those are the only 3 that I've seen.
It still shocks me that you've only seen that many Tarkovskys.
Mirror to me feels like Persona, but better. It's got that same sort of energy.
Yeah.
But Mirror is like, it's like a self-made. It's a cinematic autobiography.
Mirror is one of the most uniquely constructed films. It's the closest I think film has come to poetry, or in terms of like full 100% just like self inner subjective experience expressed in film in a reasonably comprehensible way. I think there are perhaps other like really avant-garde movies that are just pure expression, but this is kind of balancing the needs of narrative and the needs of just personal emotion, just using film to create scenes that are just purely based on emotion and on feeling and on aesthetics, but also have just that through line of narrative, that kind of self-autobiographical narrative that Mirror has. It's just such an interesting movie. It's also a very interesting movie to consider from the position of being Russian. There's a lot of I was turned on to this recently. A lot of stuff about like the Russian people and the idea of like Russian heritage in that film that Tarkovsky was talking about, and like the collective memory of that country, which is very interesting. It's a very interesting way of looking at that movie, and I think there's so many ways of approaching Mirror, in terms of like approaching it from yourself and your own personal thoughts, approaching it from like looking at it, reading it on a Tarkovsky level, reading it on a Russian history, society kind of level. You can bring whatever you bring to it. There's something that you could read into it.
I also think completely unrelated. It's just one of the best Criterion packages.
Oh yeah,
I'm a hardcore fan of the digipacks, but yeah, I'm Tarkovsky in general is just objectively one of the best. I think this is the year I finally go into the others. Solaris has been on my list forever, and I have a feeling I'm gonna like that more than you. I can't wait to fight about it.
Excellent.
Next one for me would be another one. I think it's already on the list in the form of the trilogy. That's Apur Sanzar, aka The World of Apu. This whole trilogy to me is like akin to The Godfather, that you just put Godfather 1 and 2 together. Of the 3, Pather Panchali and The World of Apu are my favorites, but I'm going to go with The World of Apu because the ending is just one of the best endings to any film ever. I love The World of Apu. I've only seen it once. I'd like to revisit the entire trilogy, but I think it's important in general to have that sort of Indian cinema representation, because before the time of Triple R and over the top Bollywood excess, there was like I feel like not as much from India that has made into the greater film canon. But Apur Sanzar is just like, I don't know. again, to me, it feels very literary. It feels very tactile and tangible. It's got a lot of texture to it. It's got soul. It's a religious experience. It's one of the best.
So my number 5 pick, not in order. Let me just reiterate that. Number 5 pick, Fanny and Alexander, which I feel like is the obvious one, given that it's my favorite movie of all time at the moment. But it is also just it's such a wonderful movie that I love to return to every year, which I didn't this year. I probably will. I'll give it a rewatch pretty soon. It was my intention to try to get either Nick or Nate to watch it, but
Well, which one?
didn't have time. What?
Which cut?
The TV version. I feel like that's easier to get people on board with because you're like, look. It's just an hour and 10-minute episode. If you like it, let's continue. If you don't, we don't have to continue. Of course, they're gonna like it.
I'm curious. Your favorite version is it the TV version?
It's the TV version. I just feel like it's a more fleshed out world, and there's a lot of. I think they're about the same in terms of like narrative impact. They both get across the themes and the meaning. So if you're purely going for just a more concise version, the movie feature-length version is good. But I just think like there are moments and extra little details that fill out the world so much in the TV version that just kind of make it feel more robust and a more kind of fulfilling journey to go on. It really feels like a journey.
I'd be curious to check out the TV or the film version, but every time I want to, I just think I don't want to miss out. It's just going to be what I've seen, but less of it. But I'd be curious to see just what they cut around. But I don't know. You can't have too much of a good thing in the TV version, and it's also better to pace it out because like you said, I watched it over the course of like a week. I did like one episode before bed every night. It's just gives me more time to think about it.
And I love like the little bite-sized pieces of some of those episodes, like the way that they start and they end. Sometimes it's just kind of random where they end.
Yeah.
But they do feel very much like it feels episodic in a really weirdly cinematic way as well. Like each episode has its own kind of deal going for it. And it's just great.
I would agree. I've rewatched it recently. I've yet to update my favorite films of all time list, but I definitely put that somewhere in there now.
Wow,
it's good.
I love to see it.
Speaking of favorite films, this is my most recent pick, my most modern pick. I'm gonna go with Inside Llewyn Davis. I know
good movie.
Coen Brothers in general also not on this list. There's many that you can choose from. But just to me personally, again, it's the Chungking thing where like this is the one I connect to the most. It's my favorite movie of all time. You could just as easily put No Country for Old Men, Fargo, The Big Lebowski, A Serious Man. But that's my favorite. It's one of my favorite. It's just my favorite movie in general. It's the one I return to the most, the one I think about the most, the one that got me into more like, I don't want to say artsy movies because I feel like this one in general is still pretty straightforward and entertaining. But I don't know. It's just I don't really have any justification. I feel like if you're picking the 10 best movies of all time, you have to put your favorite movie in there. This is my favorite movie. I'm putting it in.
Here's my question. When was the last time you watched Inside Llewyn Davis?
Let me see. It's been recent.
Oh, you don't know? Yeah.
No, it's within the last year. I just couldn't tell you specifically the date. It is, as of right now, I think my most logged movie on Letterboxd.
Interesting. I didn't think it was all that recent. Not within like the past couple months at least.
Oh, no. It's September 2021. So not that recent.
Okay. So yeah, over a year. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it.
It's I've been wanting to rewatch it for a bit. So there we go.
There we go, indeed. Yeah, it's pretty good. I think I might go with a different Coen Brothers movie just because I think there are some other ones that are maybe more influential. But
I mean, yeah, definitely.
Llewyn Davis, I don't know. It's creeping up on my Coen Brothers ranked list. It might get to the top one day.
The one thing that I haven't thought about since rewatching it is now I'm a cat guy. She's gone, but she's in here. She's in the house somewhere. Maybe the cat element will bring it up for me. I don't know.
But even further up.
I mean, how many Coen Brothers movies or movies in general can you think have novelty space songs? Not a lot.
No, not a lot indeed.
Not a lot.
You got me there. I hadn't thought of that before. So speaking of really long movies that you go on a journey with, my next pick is A Brighter Summer Day, and it. I'm always conflicted between Yi and A Brighter Summer Day, but like if you were to hold my face to a fire and say, "You're gonna fucking die if you don't pick one of them," it's gonna be A Brighter Summer Day, I think. Uh, they're both extremely well made movies, but Brighter Summer Day, just ever since I watched it, it just has this nagging feeling in like the back of my mind. Like it feels like a long forgotten memory or something. Just the way that it's like so long, and the narrative goes so many places, and it really lets you like live in
It
this
doesn't
world
really
of 19
focus on one of them either, which is, I think that's
Right.
what got me, was off-putting it the first time I watched it, but the more and more I think about it, it's not about any one thing. It's about a time and a place, and a feeling, multiple feelings. But
But it
yeah,
captures the feeling of that time and place.
yeah,
It
it's
really
very
puts you
personal.
in there. Yes, it's personal, but it also is also very historical in terms of like talking about the history of Taiwan as a nation. And there's just so much to love about it, and it has wormed its way into my heart. And it's just, for a 4 hour long movie, I think it's definitely one of the best. It's just so interestingly constructed. It's not like some of the other like really long movies like The Godfather or Lawrence of Arabia. It's not an epic. It's a very kind of personal, intimate story. I think that's so interesting that we spend so much time with those characters and kind of live with them for a bit.
Mhm.
It's great.
Yeah, I'd agree. I still, as of now, prefer Yi just because I've seen it twice. Brighter Summer Day. It every once in a while it comes into theaters, and next time it does come here, I'm gonna go see it. But it's one of those, you got to set aside a day for that. But I do think it's one of those, that another movie that has caught on in more recent years, just because of the, obviously the sad passing of Edward Yang at a young age, and the restoration of his films. And his films, I feel like today are more seen than they ever have been. So um, he's just one of those directors, I think, is just over time it's just going to get way higher on the list.
Mhm.
But yes, any of those two I think are great. Now this is where we start getting to fuckers territory, where I'm going a little off the beaten path, not too much, but as I've said, I'm very happy that animation has been on the list. But if I had to pick an animated movie, I would go with Perfect Blue, who I feel
Wow.
like is another one like Miyazaki, who's one of the more renowned ones. He's been getting more famous in recent years, but Perfect Blue is like, I don't know, it almost feels like it predates Mulholland Drive in terms of its subject matter and its feel. Perfect Blue is another one of those that when I saw, I was like, this is pretty good. But the more and more I think about it, it's really good. It's also one of those movies that, as much as I love Miyazaki, it's almost like his style has become the Ghibli style. And even though he is the predominant artistic voice in that sort of collective, I do think that as a whole, um, Satoshi Kon feels very of his own. I've seen everything he's made, and I love all of it. I think this is what really stands out above the rest, as just being just like an incredible singular film. One of my favorite animated movies, and I think it's another one that's just been going up in recent years. Another one who, like Edward Yang, passed too early, but the body of work that he left behind is very influential and great, and that's probably my favorite of his.
Uh, I don't know. I haven't seen it recently. I don't have enough memory of it to really make a discussion about that. It's definitely out of left field. It's not something I would personally consider, but it's a good argument.
Do you remember
I'll
when you
accept
saw it?
that.
If you saw the sub or the dub?
Most likely, I saw the sub
Okay,
because
yeah.
I tend to just go for sub.
His is one of those that the dub, unfortunately, is just not as good. But Perfect Blue, good.
I'll
I
have,
recommend it.
I'll have to give it a rewatch at some point. Uh, in terms of glaring omissions from the critics list, my next movie is one that I am shocked and horrified, and I think delegitimizes the whole thing. You should just throw away the critics list and redo the vote. And the movie is Come and See. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
Come and See is
Thankfully,
it
on the
is
director's list, but I agree.
yes. So it got something, but it's heartbreaking. It is brutal. it is such a unique feeling that it gives you. It's so unique in its expression. I don't think there's any movie that really comes close in terms of how like emotionally horrifying
Yeah.
that movie is. Um, and the subject matter, it's historical, so it's very much real and raw. And if you ever wanted to know what it felt like to be fighting against the Nazis,
Yeah.
here's a great movie for you.
It's a pretty popular sentiment, but there's very few movies that are like 100% anti-war, and that is one of them.
Yeah. It's also one of the very few movies where I don't think any amount of someone warning you or telling you about the experience will spoil that
No.
experience. There's nothing that you can
No.
say in words that will prepare you for that. And I think that's what a lot of great movies have in common, that words and spoilers have no effect on your initial viewing of them. There's nothing someone can say to prepare you for a movie
No.
like Come and See.
And if you list a lot of what happens in Come and See on paper, it could so easily come across as torture porn, and it's amazing that it doesn't.
Mhm.
Every like the barn scene, the bloody legs at the end, it's just all adds up to something that is just. I can see why maybe the critics just didn't want to put people through that. Maybe they didn't want to feel so sad, but no, that is one of the most glaring omissions. I would agree there.
Yeah. And shit, I wanted to just look real quick. One of the other reasons is that it is also super popular for some reason, not in terms
Yeah.
of like wide, obviously not like a wide ranging audience, but people who like cinema really love Come and See, and especially as of late with the Blu-ray that just came out. It's number one on Letterboxd currently.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So people, if you watch it, it pretty much works. It pretty much emotionally destroys you, and people are just like, yeah, 5 stars. I don't know what else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like if you don't like it, you're pro-war.
Maybe there are. I'm sure there's some haters out there.
Yeah, Come and See is one of those that I like. It's almost like I have to force myself to watch it.
I need to watch it again, and
I've seen it
I don't know
twice, and yeah, I've always wanted to check the special features on the Blu-ray or the Criterion have Roger Deakins talking about the cinematography, which is interesting. But yeah, goddamn, what a fucking nightmare. Agree though. I'm glad it's on the critics list. Next one. Speaking of doom and gloom and nightmares and horrible, I have Naked. Mike Lee's Naked.
Mike Lee definitely deserves a place.
And you know, part of me thinks that if Mike Lee got on the list, it would be Secrets and Lies, something a little more conventional. But Naked is just one of my favorite movies. It's one of the best movies ever made. It's again, talk about like unique structure. This is just a movie that on paper shouldn't really work, but it does really well. And it's more than just a character piece. I think it has a lot to say about a lot of different things. Just weirdly funny, also really horrifying, also really touching. It's just this weird amalgamations of feelings, both good and bad, that are just thrown together in a character study of one of the worst people of all time. And it's a weird outlier in the rest of Mike Lee's work because he tends to focus on, you know, more real people, kitchen sink dramas, that sort of thing. But this just feels like a completely different director in terms of its subject matter, but it still has his very specific feel to both the look and the characters. And it's a top 10 for me. It's one of the more, I don't know. I love it. And the list needs Mike Lee. Come on, don't do your own country like that.
Yeah, that's tough. That's real tough. Mike Lee.
Yeah.
R.I.P. In terms of his movies being on the list. He's still alive.
He's still very much alive.
Please make more movies, Mike.
He's trying.
Fund him.
Please. Throw him a bone. What else we got?
So my next movie is a movie that I love. And it's also like Naked, a movie that has the director has no representation on the list currently, and definitely should. And that film is 3 Colors Red.
Okay.
By Kieslowski.
Wow. Okay. I guess he isn't on here.
No, he was actually the 2002 list had two Kieslowskis on it. I'm pretty sure it had the Decalogue on it, and I want to say like Three Colors Blue or Three Colors Red. One of the three colors.
Would you allow Decalogue to break the miniseries rule?
No.
Okay.
No. I have made my argument. The Decalogue is really good, but I value consistency in terms of this is the idea I hold, and I'm not going to break it just because I like something. But no, Three Colors Red is it's a movie that I love that when movies have like a central theme or idea and they work to essentially demonstrate that idea through the narrative and through the filmmaking. And Three Colors Red is a movie about essentially the interconnectedness of all things and friendship and connection between people. And it's one of the most successful films in terms of like using camera shots and blocking and the very narrative itself to kind of illustrate and explore that idea of the connectedness between people. And it's a philosophical dialogue of a film. There are different ideas. Every character is kind of a variation on the idea of connectedness and the way that we are connected. And it's such a warm film, a humanist film. I think not enough movies are as realistic and as hopeful about humanity. It's almost the exact opposite of Naked, where Naked is this cold, bleak, almost nihilistic film. Three Colors Red is a very hopeful film.
Which is an interesting way to cap off the trilogy, because the first two are kind of dour. The first one is just pure gloom. The second one is kind of nasty. But then it all ties itself up with this really nice little cute story at the end.
It's a great film. Not enough films, I think, value empathy with its narrative. I think it's a very empathetic film, and it's a beautiful narrative, a beautiful movie, and I just love it. It's a great way to cap off the trilogy. It's Kieslowski's a great director.
Yeah, he is.
Definitely has a grasp on cinema in a way that other directors don't. He's in, I think, a similar category for me as Ozu and Cassavetes, in that, you know, his style is very much recognizable. Yeah, Kieslowski's dead.
R.I.P. Yeah, Polish representation. Good job, Kieslowski. Well, I hate to do this to you, but I'm breaking the miniseries rule.
Oh no.
And that's from a man Fassbinder. 8 hours don't make a day. His 5-part miniseries, each about 90 minutes total. I'm not really gonna say much because you haven't seen it. There's not really much of a discussion here, but not
seen
since
about half.
Not since The Return that I feel like something had such a weird long form art piece had such a profound effect on me. It's like this weird utopian socialist society. It's one of those things that I'm just amazed that it juggles so many different arcs and feelings and themes. And one of the episodes, I think it's one of the episodes that you've seen, where the manic pixie dream grandma and his weird, basically her weird catatonic boyfriend start a daycare just because they want to.
Yeah.
But then they are getting trapped up in the red tape of the bureaucracy, but they just don't give a shit because that's what they want to do. There's a lot of like that going on. Just people just sort of finding their own way, saying no to all the constraints that society puts on them. It's really touching. It's the only Fassbinder that I've seen that I really, really love, but it's great. I recommend watching it. And yeah, it's a miniseries, but whatever.
All right. So we talked about some directors have too many movies on the list. This next movie is yet again another movie of a director who doesn't have representation, and I would eagerly kick off a Ozu or a Kurosawa for this movie because it's another Japanese movie, and that movie is Harakiri by Masaki Kobayashi.
Yeah. Oh my god, I can't believe that didn't make it on there. That's crazy.
Harakiri is another movie that people watch it on Letterboxd and they give it a great score, and it's still in the top 10 of narrative features, actually top 3.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It is another movie like Three Colors Red that is based around number one, and then number two, it's based around a philosophy and illustrating the kind of constraints of society and the constraints of society around people and using the set design and the camera shots and the narrative to explore that control that society has and uh, the kind of selfish reasons why people do things in society to protect their class and their station. It's got stuff about classism and all that, and it's just such an interesting movie in terms of its themes and its ideas, and it's so fucking well shot.
Yeah.
My God, there are a few other black and white movies that are as perfectly shot as Harakiri.
I'm
It's great.
the anger that I felt last time around that Red Shoes wasn't on here has now been translated to the lack of Harakiri, because I just assumed that it was on here. The fact that it's not, that is literal insanity.
For me, like it's along the lines of Come and See, where it is an important movie. Like it is a document of humanity and the terrible things that humanity can do, and also the good things that we should strive for. It is a great film. I hope more people watch it. It is a great Japanese movie. It's certainly one of the best ever made. Kobayashi has done other really great work, like Quite On and The Human Condition. But this one's definitely his masterpiece.
This next one might be also contentious, at least for you, because up until this point, I had the Fellowship of the Ring in this spot, which I would also. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Fellowship should be on here. I am hoping next time around it makes it, but I traded in for a similar filmmaker with a similar legacy, and I'll put Evil Dead 2 on here because
wow,
goddamn,
goodness.
we need me personally. Look, there's a lot of amazing movies on here. There's a lot of great movies on here, but in terms of, like I said, that greatness influence thing, we need more stupid movies on here. This is getting a little too smart. And the Evil Dead 2, I don't know a single filmmaker working today that is not at least somewhat influenced by the Evil Dead 2. It's kind of the little movie that could. It's an inspiring little indie movie. It's also just insane. It's one of the best comedic performances of all time. It's one of the most influential movies of all time. No horror fan does not like the Evil Dead 2. I'm putting on the Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, I'm just not gonna say anything.
That's
I don't
fine.
agree.
That's fine. Hey,
I'm
that's fine.
a bit of a Sam Raimi denier. I think
Yeah.
there are other horror films that deserve to be on the list, perhaps. But hey, I appreciate the sentiment. I would agree in theory that there needs to be more silly on the list. It needs to kind of break out of the seriousness. This is one of my hot takes. But if you were getting all the critics together in a room and it was a more conscious decision of like what films are we placing, where are we placing them on the list, I think there's an argument to be made for The Room, of all things, to be put on the greatest films of all time list.
Yeah. I mean,
If you want to get silly.
Yeah, I do love The Room.
I think The Room fulfills the aesthetic importance. There are few things as bafflingly created, and I think there is a value in absolute shit just as much as there is the absolute pinnacle of cinema. I also think, I mean, The Room is enormously influential in terms of midnight cinema and getting people on board with like, oh, we want to watch bad.
It's not
movies.
influential in the terms that like you're not going to see echoes of The Room in like modern masterpieces, but it is a cultural phenomenon that has had influence. Yeah,
it has changed the way people approach watching movies. It has opened up new areas. The Room did to midnight bad movie cinema what like Rashomon and The Seventh Seal did for foreign film in America.
And just like Wong Kar-wai and David Lynch, it's one of those that straight from the brain to the screen. There's no filter. There's no like sort of lack of confidence. It's just what's going on in his head. The only thing is that what's going on in his head is fucking insane.
Well, that was not my pick, but that was a good little discussion. I'm glad we talked about that. I'm glad you didn't outright call me insane for making such a proposition.
There's merit. There's merit to the argument.
I don't think there's any way that it would ever get on the list if everyone has only 10 movies to vote for. I'm not voting for The Room.
Yeah.
But I think it deserves to be in a conversation. Yeah. Anyway, my next movie, which is very interesting because yet again, another director that's not on the list, and it's a director who I'd consider Chandler to be the much bigger fan of. but this is Richard Linklater's Before Sunrise.
God damn it. Yeah, that's one of those that I really debated putting on here. And it's gonna be even more insane when you see what I swapped out with him. But I agree. Linklater in general is one of those I think that doesn't get spoken of as like a high director because his movies are so small, they're so simple. But goddamn, if the Before trilogy isn't the best trilogy of all time, at
Yeah,
least in the running.
yeah. That's the thing. Where like I couldn't really fault anyone for putting. I mean, I know you're the Before Sunset stan, and that's fine. I think any of these three movies, I think they are the pinnacle of his work. Also, because I don't particularly care for Boyhood all that much, but we're not going to get into
We
that.
haven't seen Dazed and Confused.
This is true. This is true. But Before Sunrise, I also another movie that's like Before Sunrise is oddly enough, I think My Dinner with Andre. They're
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
conversation driven movies, and I think just this one's more cinematic and very much more emotionally engaging and interesting. And I love this movie to bits.
I agree.
It's
I
just
love
great.
all three. And I would put any of those on here. Richard Linklater. I don't know. I can only pick 10. Richard Linklater is like in my top 5 favorite directors, but I'm glad at least one of us put it on here. And at this last one, I'm not gonna lie. Every time that I've drafted a list, this is always the first one I put on here. It's not even my favorite of this director. It's not a movie I like love, but I'm talking like in terms of representing the wide scope of film. My last pick is Pink Flamingos.
Wow. Yeah.
I think in terms of an independent film, he's one of the most influential independent filmmakers. He's one of those filmmakers that just defies every rule of the cinematic language. A giant fuck you. It's the punk rock mentality before punk rock was on there. It's also weirdly influential. It's like one of the King Midnight movies. John Waters in general, I think even like this, which is at his most insane. I think he's got some legitimately great movies as well. I would put Female Trouble or Polyester or Hairspray on there, but I just think you need shit like this in the list. Just again, to dumb it down a little bit, I think Divine Eating Dog Shit should be in the top 100.
It's so unique. There's nothing. I mean, there's plenty of stuff there's like it since then, but it's definitely kind of like the original grunge, gross out kind of cinema.
Yeah.
And John Waters he's an icon.
He
in
is
cinematic history.
And it's so funny because if you look at his favorite movies, he loves Bergman and Oz, but he just takes that energy, that creativity, that nuance, and just channels it into something completely different. John Waters.
I like that pick. It's good. All right. I will, of course, include both of these lists in the description below so you can see all of them all at once. But yeah, those would be what we would vote for if we ever got the chance. And who knows?
Maybe we'll.
Curious to return to this in a little bit, 10 years from now, and see what we might change.
I literally think of all these, the only one that I'm telling you, the only one that was on there from the beginning was Pink Flamingos, and I could never take Pink Flamingos off.
Actually, I think 8.5 might be the only thing that I would never take off this list.
Smart.
I think I like it too much. It's too influential.
I
It's too
see
good.
you back there, Fellini.
There he is. There's the man. Yes.
Federico.
I put him there very specifically. Oh, and there's Totoro also on the list.
Oh, hey, buddy.
All right. Quickly, we'll wrap up. We've been talking a long time about the BFI list, but I just briefly want to talk about 2022. And we're going to have a much wider conversation about the movies, the new releases of 2022. Later in the month, we're going to talk about that, do our usual best of the year episode extravaganza. But I'm just curious, one or two, maybe three highlights at most of the favorite things you watched for the very first time last year that were not released in 2022.
Very first time. Yes. Okay. Let me just pick it up. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go
Sure.
first?
I'll let you give you a moment to think as I somewhere here. Okay. So this got on the number one spot fairly early on in the year, and it hung on to that spot pretty easily, and that is Only Yesterday. It is technically a movie I had watched before, but it had been so long that I was willing to call it a new watch. I essentially didn't really remember any of it. So I fudged the numbers there. But Only Yesterday, it just hit me hard, like very personally. Like it's one of the few movies where like I got to the end and I'm like, that was a movie that connected with me. And it's just great. You need to watch it.
I felt similar. I've seen it.
You have?
Yeah, I watched it pretty soon after you told me to watch.
Oh, it's Naj I'm thinking of. Naj, I
Yeah.
get him to watch that.
I was about to say I had a similar experience with Whisper of the Heart, but if I'm just talking about the three. I'm looking literally at the list here. Three of the top three of the year first watches, and this is above The Godfather Part 2, fucking Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. One of the first, amazingly took me this long to see it, was American Psycho. We mentioned previously. I kind of watched it just expecting it to be, pretty good. I've seen a lot of the funny scenes, the memed scenes. It's one of the most memed movies of all time. And I thought that would severely impact it. I didn't realize that it's really entertaining. It's really funny. It's really scary, but it's also like weirdly profound in a way I was not expecting. This like razor sharp satire of both masculinity and like this sort of 80s corporate culture, consumerist type stuff. But I'm going to make you watch it, but it is way better than
I've seen it. I need to rewatch it.
Okay.
I need to rewatch it.
It is. Yeah.
I watched it before I was really into cinema, so I didn't really get much out of it the first time.
I think I tried to watch it as a teen. I wasn't into it, but like, it's so fucking funny. At the very least, it's fucking hilarious, and yeah, one of my favorites I've watched this
year. The next one is ever since I watched Another Round and became Vinterberg pilled, and then I watched The Hunt. I had been waiting to watch The Celebration until I could get a better copy. I finally got the Blu-ray, and it is my second favorite first-time watch of the year. It's such a fucked up movie.
It is. It is gross.
Great. And the way it's filmed, I love that. Ever since film school, I've just loved the directors that just go out there and get stuff filmed. Him and the rest of the Dogma crew, and also Werner Herzog. These filmmakers, they don't give a fuck. They're like 100% narrative and character, and they're like, we're gonna do whatever we can. Fuck the rules. Fuck whatever is normal about cinema, quote unquote. Yeah. We're just gonna do it.
No,
and this is like, it's filmed on a
DV camera.
DV camera. Yeah. It's natural lighting and everything. It's just in one location. It's just so,
but cool. Really cinematic too.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree. That should be higher on my list. But I agree. The Celebration, also one of my favorite Criterion covers of all time.
Yeah, that's great.
Fucking so amazing. Yeah, no, that's great. And so in that similar vein, just people just getting out there filming no matter what. My number 2 movie of the year is Frownland. It is written and directed by Ronald Bronstein, who is now one of the co-writers and co-editors of the Safdie brothers films, who is in Daddy Long Legs as the titular daddy. It is just, I don't think I've ever seen a movie that is just gone out of its way to make you feel not anxious in like a high-strung Uncut Gems kind of way, just like really awkward and uncomfortable. It's the most unlikable main character in the history of cinema. It's disgusting. I love it. It's one of the few movies that I watched this year that made me really rethink what movies could be. It's not trying to be nice at all. I listened to an interview where he just said, it's a movie made to challenge your empathy. You think you can like feel for a guy like this. Let's see how far you could take it. I love that. Number 2 pick. It's great.
Okay. Landscape in the Mist is my number 3. And this is a movie that I had no expectations going into. In terms of like representation in cinema, it's a Greek movie. There's not and much Greek cinema out there. This is Theo Angonopoulos. Sorry if I butchered that. But he's done a few other things. And after watching this, I definitely want to check out more of his movies. Eternity in a Day. These 2 movies are both on the Letterboxd top 250 ranked features, which is what turned me on to them initially. But Landscape in the Mist is like it's definitionally like slow cinema, very few camera shots in the whole movie, but it's just so brilliantly filmed and so moody and atmospheric. I loved it.
I have never heard of it, so I'm gonna add that to the list. And I'm gonna watch it. My last pick before we close out the episode is my favorite movie that I watched this year. All That Jazz, which you haven't seen it, right?
No, I need to watch it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say too much about it because I think we should just watch it and then do an episode on it. But fucking hell, bizarre, crazy, giant, loud, personal, cinematic. It's great. He didn't make that many movies, and the movies that he did make are just kind of all over the place. But All That Jazz is just like he's not even like, he wasn't even really a director. He was more of a dancer, choreographer, musician. He made like a few movies. This is his most personal. It's 100% just an autobiography of him, and it's insane. And the best part is that Roy Scheider plays the main guy. And if you're used to Roy Scheider as the cop from Jaws and The French Connection, you'd be very surprised at how out there he can get. But we'll talk about it.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely need to watch that. All right. Well, I think that's about it. I'm sure we both could like go through our 2022 first watch lists and do a whole other podcast on that, because that was what an interesting year.
And maybe we will
watching movies. Maybe we will. There's some good stuff. There's some real shit we watched together. Some of them, now that we're in the same place. But anyway, that was the next episode of Split Take. I think this is going to be episode 100. Actually, I had been saving this spot because I released episode 101.
Okay.
I skipped 100 for this particular episode. Our first, like, it was supposed to be in person. We're supposed to be recording together downstairs. That just,
we'll figure it out. We're gonna figure it out.
It's very echoey in the living room, so I needed to spend more time figuring that out, but I didn't. Anyway, so next time, hopefully for the 2022 top 10 movies, that episode will be in the same room. We'll see. Anyway, well, thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. And we'll see you next time.